Hi, everybody. It's Randy Ray, and I will be your literate Texan tonight. Tonight, a review of Lullaby, a novel by Chuck Palahniuk. This is the edition that I have in hardcover. I think it's a really cool artwork cover. It's just a blank white page, and that's a bird on the front cover. On the back cover, you've got the script. It says Lullaby by Chuck Palahniuk. Also, this is what the cover looks like to the ebook version of Lullaby, which I'm reviewing here. So, okay, the reason I have both is because honestly my vision is getting to where I'm having a lot of trouble reading books like Lullaby on paper because the font was a little bit too small, vision's a little bit blurry. On this, I have the what used to be called the Kindle Fire. Now it's just called the Fire. But I have the Kindle app. It's the only thing I use it for, so it might as well be a Kindle. But I can use white text on a black background and blow that font way up, and I can read that very easily. So, as much as I prefer reading Lullaby on a piece of paper with ink on it, it's just not in the cards right now. I'll get Vision Insurance in November, get it all taken care of, and then I'll be able to read things either way. But right now, I'm reading a lot of stuff electronically. Lullaby was published in 2002 and was nominated for the Bram Stoker Award for Best Novel in 2003. This is most likely where I heard about the book. I had not read Fight Club. I'm aware that many people came to Chuck Palahniuk's work through Fight Club because the movie was such a big hit that people wanted to read the book too. I even understand there's been a couple of sequels to Fight Club now, graphic novels. I think both of them were graphic novels, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Don't start me lying, folks. But, Palahniuk's a pretty prolific writer. He more or less cranks out a book every year. I know he also teaches classes in how to write fiction. And, golly whiz, I try to keep these things organized, but I didn't do a very good job of it today. It was nominated for the Bram Stoker Award in 2003 for Best Novel. And Bram Stoker Award is the award from the Horror Writers Association for horror books. And, like most of these awards, they fall into categories. So there's Best Novel, I think there's Best Novella, Best Short Story Collection. They've had Lifetime Achievement Awards. I'd have to go to the website and look, but it's pretty standard kind of thing. Except it focuses on the horror genre. But it was also nominated and won the 2002 Pacific Northwest Booksellers Association Award. And it won that in 2003. So this is an award-winning book. And I read this for Horror Mayhem this year. This was my third or fourth time to read this one. I'm a big believer in rereading. If I wanted to describe Chuck Palahniuk's style as a writer, I know he's described himself as a minimalist writer. I've also seen him talk about, I may get this wrong, Tom Spanbauer's class on dangerous writing, which is writing about things that, you might not normally want to share to the public about. And I could see how this would be true for the emotions that are covered in Lullaby can be pretty ugly. Okay, so spoiler alert, plot spoilers are coming up. I'm going to keep them minor and I'm going to keep them minimal, I hope. Okay, so high concept stuff. So Lullaby is it's kind of like Frankenstein in one respect. It's got a frame story, and the frame story chapters are italicized, so you know that it's part of the frame story, and those are told in the present tense, okay? So the thing is, the action that's going on in the present tense seems nearly impossible to reconcile with the actual story, with what's going on in the actual novel, in the flashback sequences. And yeah, there's a frame story, but the rest of the book is almost completely told in flashback. And in, I believe, the flashback chapters are written traditionally in the, they're still written in first person, but they're written in past tense instead of present tense. So what's the premise of Lullaby? Okay, what's the dead bird on the cover all about? Lullaby is a book largely about a man who's a reporter, and he works for a newspaper. So he's not particularly, the guy's in no danger of winning the Pulitzer Prize, let's put it that way. And so he writes, he's on the beat for, I think they even call it the dead baby beat. But he's writing a series of articles about SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, which is very serious. And the book takes it very seriously and respectfully, considering. While he's investigating the families and how they're dealing with the aftermath of the SIDS events in their particular lives, he realizes that at every home that he's visited, there's been a collection of books, or a book, which is a collection of short stories and poems and songs from the past. I don't remember the name of the book. I had it written down at one time for the review, but it's not really that important or relevant. But there are also these books, or these copies or editions of the books that he finds, are also open to the same page, to the same story, or actually it's a poem that they're all open to. And he realizes that this isn't just a coincidence. This song is a culling song. In the past, some babies weren't going to make it. And rather than let them live out what's left of their short lives suffering, they would use a spell called the culling song to kill them, but without any suffering. There's just instant death for no reason or no explanation. And you come to learn, and this is where the real spoilers start, and I'm still not going to spoil the entire plot, but you do eventually come to learn that the protagonist, Carl's his name, the reporter, had actually used the culling song on his own family, not knowing. And so his wife and daughter are dead because he read that culling song to him one night. And that was about 10 years ago. Anyway, as he figures this out and realizes it, and it's an outstanding coincidence, but this book is full of outstanding coincidences. It's almost as if coincidence in this book is a god of some kind. But he's looking for someone else who knows the secret of this culling song so he can go to them for advice, because he's got so much anger and emotion that it makes the culling song a really, really powerful spell. And so instead of actually having to read it to or sing it to a potential victim, all he has to do is think it at him. So basically, he's got the power to kill with a thought, like that. And you've heard the expression, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. He becomes a serial killer. And he's concerned about this because, his morality, his sense of morality, thinks that serial killing's bad. So he tries to find someone who has experience with the book, and he finds a real estate agent. She's a woman, and she specializes in selling haunted houses, but that's completely a side plot, and a very small side plot to the rest of the book story. But at any rate, he finds her, and she's obviously not got a problem being a serial killer, and he's looking for, he's hoping to get her advice on how to handle this great power that he's got and stuff. And he's not very successful. But they do agree and decide that the best thing for them to do is to travel across the country, find every copy of the culling song in existence and destroy it. Turns out this particular book only published 300 copies. The particular editor is kind of there's a certain type of low rent editor out there, and this is true in real life too, that basically goes out and finds a bunch of public domain works and organizes them into anthologies. And these anthologies are basically free for these people to make, but they don't sell a particularly large number of copies, and a lot of them are sold specifically to libraries. And so they're traveling across country and finding these books in libraries and then destroying them as they go. And since there's 300 copies, it's a pretty big project. This is bigger than some of the reading projects I mentioned in one of my most recent videos. So along the way, they also take the real estate agent's assistant with them. Her name is Mona. The real estate agent's name is Helen. But Helen's assistant's name is Mona. And she's a Wiccan. She's a witch. And she has a coven and everything. And she knows about the culling song, but she doesn't have access to it because mom and dad, Carl and Helen, the two main characters, they're not giving her access to it. Also, she has a boyfriend named Oyster. Having a boyfriend named Oyster, I'm assuming is, and I shouldn't assume this, but I'm assuming that this is a distinction or an honor that's reserved almost completely for characters in fictional books. But I love that the character's named Oyster. And Oyster's kind of obnoxious. He's a vegan, he's an environmentalist, and he's not obnoxious just because of those particular sets of beliefs. I'm something of an environmentalist myself, and I've flirted with the idea of veganism and even practiced it for a while. You wouldn't know it from looking at me because I'm the type of guy who looks like he's ate plenty of meat and dairy products, and that's true, I have. But I have experimented with a vegan lifestyle, and believe it or not, I actually liked it and lost a lot of weight on it, and it definitely improved my health. But I started dating this yoga teacher. Now we're veering from the plot of the book, and we're getting into the plot of Randy Ray's life. But I dated this yoga teacher during my vegan phase, and it turned out that she really liked steak, and I really liked her, and we started going out to some of the nicest steakhouses here in Dallas, and it wasn't possible to maintain my vegan lifestyle while dating her. I did, of course, eventually break up with her, but I didn't go back to the vegan lifestyle. So I like to let these books speak for themselves as much as possible. And Palahniuk has a couple of quirks or distinctions in his writing that I think is interesting. He'll come up with a phrase and it'll be really similar to another phrase, and he'll repeat this throughout the book at various times until it becomes a sort of incantation in the words of the characters. And so I'm going to read some of these, okay? But also I want to read some just some examples of his writing, okay? One of the things that he does is since Carl's a reporter, when he describes a person, he explains that in journalism class he was taught to make sure that he got all the details. And so a lot of times with when he's describing a character that's just showed up in the book, he'll say his details are, or her details are, and then he'll lay on the description and stuff. So I think I have right here a description of Helen when he meets her. Helen, she's wearing a white suit and shoes, but not Snow White. It's more the white of downhill skiing in Banff with a private car and driver on call. 14 pieces of matched luggage, and a suite at the Hotel Lake Louise. Okay, so he does this throughout. He'll describe a color, but he'll say, okay, Helen, she's wearing a white suit and shoes, but not Snow White. So he'll describe one version of the color, Snow White, with a longer, more involved version of the color. And I'm not sure if this signifies anything symbolically in the book. Probably. To somebody who's good at reading symbolism and symbology. I'm not. I just think it's a cool quirk of his writing that I like, and it gives it a distinctive voice. So, what else have we got here? Oh, this is just great prose right here, I thought. I'm just going to read this out loud because it deserves it. Well, heck, where did it... Okay, here we go. Supposed to be highlighted. Okay, so this guy's talking about his life. This is the main character. It's nothing perfect or complete, but this is what I've made of my life. Right or wrong, it follows no great master plan. All you can do is hope for a pattern to emerge, and sometimes it never does. Still, with a plan, you can only get the best you can imagine. He always hoped for something better than that. I just thought that was really, really good writing. All that work and love and effort and time, my life, wasted. Everything I hoped would outlive me, I've ruined. This is some dark stuff, okay? This is not a cheerful novel. It's got a really wry wit and sense of humor, but it is not... I mean, it's funny. It's laugh out loud funny in a lot of different places. And eventually you get to the point where you find the master key that unlocks why the frame story is so much different from the events in the flashbacks in the story itself. Eventually you get to that part. but not until much, much later. But when you do, basically it's like, oh, wow. But it's like a big joke, you know. It's the punchline to a big, big joke. One of the punchlines that comes up repeatedly is that characters with passwords to computers, anytime they come up with that kind of thing to deal with, the password is always password, which I thought was funny. You couldn't get away with that anymore. This is good here too. These distractionaholics, these focusophobics, you'll see that a lot throughout the book. You'll see these blank and blank holics, these blank and blank phobics. Usually it has to do with sound. You know, it has to do with people who want to listen. But this is really, really great paragraph here, or section. Old George Orwell got it backward. Big Brother isn't watching. He's singing and dancing. He's pulling rabbits out of a hat. Big Brother's busy holding your attention every moment that you're awake. He's making sure you're always distracted. He's making sure you're fully absorbed. He's making sure your imagination withers until it's as useful as your appendix. He's making sure your attention is always filled. And this being fed, it's worse than being watched. With the world always filling you, no one has to worry about what's in your mind. With everyone's imagination atrophied, no one will ever be a threat to the world. This is great too. This is a hell of a sentence right here. There are worse things than finding your wife and child dead. Wow. There are worse things than finding your wife and child dead. I can't imagine what they are. I don't even remember what section of the book that was in, but man, that's mind-blowing. The book's name was Poems and Rhymes from Around the World. I've got notes and highlights throughout this. In journalism school, what they want you to be is a camera, a trained, objective, detached, professional, accurate, polished, and observant. So generally speaking, you know, these are the facts about so-and-so, and then he lists off 3 facts. Let's see if there's anything interesting else in here to read to you. The stuff with the colors is some of my favorite stuff. It's pink, but not shrimp pink. It's more the color of shrimp pate served on a water cracker with a sprig of parsley and a dollop of caviar. That's great. Still, this taxidermied look that passes for beauty above a certain age and income, it's too old for her. Taxidermied look. He's describing a woman there. Yeah, and it's a younger woman, you know, who's doing the heavy makeup thing, which would look really beautiful on an older woman, but she's too young for it. Poems and Rhymes about the World. Okay, so one more passage I'm going to read aloud to you. In journalism school, they treat you to start with your most important fact, the inverted pyramid, they call it. Put the who, what, where, when, and why at the top of the article. Then list the lesser facts in descending order. That way, an editor can lop off any length of story without losing anything too important. That's true. I was taught about the inverted pyramid from a friend of mine. He teaches creative writing and fiction now, but he was a journalism student early in our college years, and he taught me about the inverted pyramid then. At any rate, do I recommend this? Absolutely. Is this the kind of book that's going to scare you? Well, it depends. If you like jump scares, this isn't your book. If you like creepy philosophical horror, man, this is totally your book. The characters are interesting and compelling. The plot moves quickly. It's only 272 pages long. Lullaby, in fact, is one of my favorite horror novels, and I would recommend it to anyone. But I mean, it ain't Fight Club. Don't come to it expecting Fight Club. But it is Chuck Palahniuk, and he does have a distinctive style of writing. So if you've read his other books, you'll be interested in this too, probably. The only other thing that's interesting to note about this book was he started writing it in 1999 when his father had been murdered. And his father was found guilty of the murder, but him and the rest of his family had to participate in the decision-making process about whether or not the murderer should be put to death. And so this was the kind of thing that Chuck Palahniuk was dealing with in his real life and in his mind as he was writing this book. The result was, to me, a purely magical literary horror novel that dealt with a lot of philosophy that you know, like I say, it's the fourth time I've read it, so it must be good, right? All right, so that is my review of Chuck Palahniuk's novel, Lullaby. I will be back with more videos soon. I want to thank you for sticking it out with me for so long. And until next time, stay sexy, folks, and please stay hydrated. It's more important than you think.